Okay, let's go to the next slide, Bridget, and we'll get started. So I did just want to kind of acknowledge also the grief that many of us are feeling today, and this week and this weekend, and so in one moment we can hold joy, and in the next we can acknowledge grief. And so this is actually a sticker that I have on my computer, and I try and read it daily because I think when we work in this sector, um, we are always living in that space between, I guess, despair and hope, and there's a lot of work to be done. So I'll just read it to you. It's do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So that's a sticker that I have, that I keep on my computer just as a reminder that when things feel overwhelming, there are things that we can do now, and focusing on our role in the present to create a better future. So, and the illustrator of this piece is Gracie Chin. Her shop is closed right now while she moves to Berlin, I guess. But if you want a sticker, she has a website, and has a lot of really cool of social justice oriented art on there. So, all right. In today's time together, I do just want to say that we will be discussing, oh, and thank you, that is Micah 6:8. I believe it's a verse. So thanks to Kurt for messaging that to me. So today's time together, youth summer opportunities will be our main topic, and we had the opportunity to convene a group on Monday with our friends at United Way of Central Iowa, just talking about, what is happening this summer for our young people, how are our programs adapting to COVID-19, what new is coming forward. And so that will be our main topic today. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have our discussion breakouts, 2 around youth opportunities, and then we'll leave the main room open for discussion. If we can go to the next slide, and then I'll invite Kate Bennett to share her video and share her audio to present. Kate, are you here yet today? Oh, there she is.
I
All
am
right.
here. Can you hear me?
There. Yes. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And yes, as Brianne mentioned, just on Monday, June 1st already, if we can believe it, we had the opportunity to convene several of our United Way funded, but then other partners, funders in the community to just talk about, what's going on with summer programming. Obviously, there are so many unknowns even today, and there are more knowns this week than there were last week. So I just wanted to share with you some kind of themes that emerged from that conversation. We did break out into breakout rooms by age of kids, and so it was great to have the different areas that serve different ages of children have a opportunity to speak to each other. And in fact, it was suggested that we continue convening because there is so much to learn from each other. So I want to share with you, and it's up on the screen, the key takeaways or common themes, however you want to describe it. Programs are pivoting quickly, but also carefully. An out of school time program and an after school program moving to a virtual when there's also virtual coming from schools isn't something that can happen overnight. We do have some programs in the community that are opening as early as next week in person. Those are obviously, for the most part, at 50% or less capacity, and will be attempting to follow the CDC guidelines for distancing. Some of the challenges that they have are things like busing. field trips for kids. If there are places to take kids, they discussed that the DHS recommendation is maybe 13 kids on an 80-person bus. Well, that's probably not very feasible from a funding perspective. Then to kind of lead into the next bullet point, there are a lot of superseding organizations that govern these bodies. So for programs that might be housed in a school building, like an Altoona Kids Club that's in Southeast Polk, or Metro Kids in Des Moines, or even Boys and Girls Club that takes space from DMPS, how do you regulate your program with the Department of Ed, the DHS, and then of course the CDC guidelines? They all have a little bit of a different flavor to them. So kind of navigating all of those systems and figuring out what is the best way for your program to operate. The digital divide definitely came up. I'm sure this is something that your group has discussed. And not only did it come up in terms of programs wanting to connect virtually with their families, however that would look, but then also with the schoolwork, with the, distance learning guidance given by so many school districts in our metro, the programs that serve these families really felt that families and children that they were serving did not have the access to the technology, but then also the skill level to navigate the world of distance learning. So although they may have received a computer or a hotspot, just the idea of logging on to their child's Infinite Campus, I don't know how many of you, on this call have kids that are in a school system, but the amount of emails, and sometimes they text you, email you, and call you all with the same information, it can be overwhelming. And just the terminology that they use and how kids were submitting their work was all very foreign for a lot of the families. And so there was a lot of talk about what can United Way do, or what can we as a community do to help bridge the language gap, so that everyone knows when you're talking about some of these distance learning issues, what everyone's talking about. And is there a tutorial that districts could create that would help families navigate that? Not surprisingly, there were a lot of unmet needs, some identified food, educational supports, kind of going to what I said before, just about not knowing how to navigate the system or being unsure of how to support their children in distance learning. And then household items, for families that may be still working, frontline staff that are not having the flexibility of working from home. We've all heard, that cleaning supplies, just basic things, are hard to get, even if you have the ability to get up and go to the grocery store when you want, let alone if you're trying to still work. So those were all things that were unmet needs. I will say this about the food. Everyone has really stepped up in terms of their food delivery. Boys and Girls Club really has started serving a lot more meals. We know Des Moines Public Schools has been amazing with offering everyday food, and everyone really appreciated that. Food was an issue, but not necessarily something that they felt like families didn't have access to, just that something that really needed to be beefed up and quickly addressed. So there were some opportunities that emerged. One I alluded to before. Really felt strongly that parents now more than ever were wanting to engage in their children's education. They want to know. They realize now, wow, I don't know what my kids are working on. I don't know what all these things are, and I need help. So I think there's an opportunity for schools, partners, all of us to figure out how to deliver those messages to parents in a way that can help them help their kids. So they want to work with the district to navigate distance learning pathways, etc. What we all determined was that collaboration and creativity are the keys to moving forward. More sharing between programs, obviously collaboration with school districts, there's a lot of desire to have some, and this would be probably like a stretch goal, but if distance learning does continue into the fall, we definitely are going to need guidance from the districts on what they want after school and out of school times to do to support them, because we don't want there to be the summer slide, the COVID slide. And so that's going to be something we need to work on together.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Kate. One of I think the things that I recall from this session on Monday too was the suggestion about communicating with families via text message. And it's been about 7 years since I worked at a youth serving organization. So I am assuming that technology has made some advances in that time. But I'm curious in the comments, or if you know, are there good programs? I know back in the day I was searching for one because text was like number one with families back then, even too. Are there good programs where you can blast out text information, enter it into a computer? I sound like a real old millennial here, guys. And then it can go to a number of families, because I know many of the families we serve also, might change their number on a pretty regular basis if they're using pay as you go, or just the way that phone systems work. So if any partner, if you know of, please feel free to voice it. But if any of our partners who are on the call now have a really great program to like group text out updates for programming, I think that would be really interesting, and I'd love to share it in the session resources after we meet today. So please, in the chat box, feel free if you know of a good solution, or Kate, do you have one that you recommend?
There's one we've been looking into at United Way. It's not exactly what you're talking about, but it's called Bright by Text, and
Okay.
it's a partner with several organizations. It's meant for kids ages 0 to 8, so it would be more, in the early childhood space. But we've had some conversations with them, and it's a way to text out like developmental milestones, opportunities for activities. So that's one that we're looking into. I know the district has something, and I'm embarrassed because I have 2 kids in the district and I haven't signed up for it, but it's called like CNEX. And I
Yeah.
think it's a way that they can communicate in multiple languages. I don't know if it's just the same information that we're getting through Infinite Campus, but it's a way to get it translated, or if it's different.
Yeah, that's really cool. So if anybody has leads on that, feel free to email me or message the chat, because I think that's another kind of way that this group can resource share and uh, spread those best practices and opportunities. So thank you, Kate.
Yes.
Let's bring in some of our nonprofit leaders who are doing this summer youth programming. And we'll probably start with Jennifer, since we were chatting when you joined. If you just wanted to come on and turn on your video and audio and tell us a little bit about what Youth Justice Initiative is and what you're doing with youth this summer.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. We're known as YJI, but we're West Des Moines Youth Justice Initiative, and we're a program that operates out of the West Des Moines Police Department. So we're a community-based restorative justice program. So we look at crime a little bit differently, not what happens and how do we punish, but what happens, who was harmed, and what are the obligations of the harms. So as we've been doing the work, we've begun to notice that there's young people out there that don't have anything to do in the summer, and then they show up in our office with a crime. So we began to do some prevention work. We started doing a program with only kids who had committed crimes in the summer, and we've been doing that for 5 years. And then we noticed, we did a mapping exercise with United Way, and we noticed that there was an apartment complex directly across the street from the police department called Chapel Ridge West. And it had a very large number of youth who were running around, wreaking a little chaos in the neighborhood, I think those are the right words. So we looked them up, and they had the largest number of police calls, and it's a 168 unit complex. And they're one of 2 groups that accept Section 8. So, and it has a very large refugee and immigrant population. So we started building relationships over there about a year ago, and we just started showing up on site, playing basketball, bringing treats, hanging out. And last summer we offered programming 1 day a week, and we just came and hang out and play games and read books. We had library tours. And this year we're gonna actually offer on-site program from 11 till 4:30, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And with COVID-19, the numbers have changed a little bit and space is limited. So we'll work with 2 groups of 10 to start until things settle down. The goal will be primarily, I like kids to be outside. So if we can be outside, we're outside the whole time, weather permitting. So cross your fingers. We're gonna have a sunny, semi-cool summer. And the needs that we're seeing are just, sometimes they feel a bit unmanageable, but we're gonna target helping kids get caught up on basic skills, rote skills like addition, multiplication, subtraction, and reading. And since this incident, the incident with the gentleman getting murdered in Minneapolis, it's opened a door so that the West Des Moines Police Department is going to start coming on site more. And we received a gift of books from United Way. So I believe, cross your fingers, I have a commitment from the police department to come weekly and read a book and come and hand out the books. And we're gonna begin a conversation about maybe doing something like coffee with cops. I meet with the assistant chief tomorrow to kind of get those details worked out, but we're really excited about that because I've been pushing for that for about a year, but I think the door is finally opened a little bit. I think that's everything. I don't want to go on too long.
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And I think, that's a great example as we've been talking these many weeks about the power of relationship building and, your organization looking at that kind of mapping of opportunities. Also something that we've been talking about, where are the gaps? Where can your mission, make the most impact? So thanks for sharing.
Thanks
I'll
for
call
having
in.
me.
Absolutely. I'll call in Nancy from Pi 515. Nancy, if you could turn on your video and audio and share with us a little bit about Pi 515 and then the exciting programming that you have for summer during COVID-19.
I have to apologize on the video part, just because I've been yelling at kids all day and my kids slept all
You're
night.
just fine.
As you guys can imagine, there's a lot of some kids we know that are really angry and sad at this moment. And it's just been a couple weeks of like trying to calm them down. So it's been a little chaotic on our end as well. But thank you so much for having me. I hope everybody can hear me. Since COVID-19 happened, it really affected a lot of our students. And if you've been reading some of our media stories, we've been at the forefront of calling for accessibility of technology for young people. I think we were the first organization that actually went out and started buying laptops for young people and creating a relationship with the Mediacom to make sure that kids had, months access to free Wi-Fi. But also we do realize because of COVID-19, we had to cancel a lot of our in-person classes. And we also had to cancel a May youth-led tech summit. So we are replacing that with a summer virtual global challenge. We recognize just how COVID-19 disrupted education and how many students had difficulties transitioning to online classes. I think every parent will say it was very difficult to do online classes. So we felt that this new reality gave us an opportunity to seek, to use technology to just better enhance and teach them how to do online classes. So we are providing a summer program, which is going to be 6 to 8 weeks. It's a summer virtual global challenge, and we are having children research 3 challenges. It's going to be transportation, health, and agriculture. They will be working with experts in different industries. Some of our classes will be co-lectured by professionals. We have somebody like Tej, if you know Tej, he'll be co-leading one of our workshops. We have Sophia Ahmad, I think she's with Mercy Foundation. She'll be co-leading, she'll be teaching critical thinking skills to the students. We have Nick Garhart. I don't know if you guys know him. I know he was in the insurance world. He's going to be lecturing a class as well. We have our friends from Techstars. They'll be teaching entrepreneurship skills. We have some friends from Bank of the West. They'll be teaching you kids resumes as well as financial, because those things are very crucial. What we want kids to do is to research global challenges, collect data and map them. We're working with Google to see if they'll be part of that. It's a unique class that we're trying to put together. It is co-led by some of our alumni. So I'm kind of taking a sit back as I watch some of our young students come back and actually give back, you know, right here in Des Moines. And we have an opportunity for at least 5 interns, college interns, and we're planning to actually pay them a stipend. We're kind of broke, but we're stretching ourselves to make sure that college students, we do give them a stipend. And then at the end, the kids will be able to present their work, as well as we're calling on 3 other companies to do virtual tours for these kids. So we're really, really pretty excited about it. We start from June 15th and we end a couple weeks after that.
Great. Nancy, I love that you're really leveraging the virtual platforms to bring in volunteers from the business community and continue that engagement, which I know has been really critical for Pi 515. You know, and the opportunity to think differently about, you know, volunteers, and they're also on Zoom at home, and so how can they you know, do some skills-based volunteering with your youth during this time. So I think that's a really neat example that you've pulled together, and I know you're working super hard.
Yeah, we have, for the last 2 years, we've really been a lot in the schools. And what we've really managed to do is to make sure that our high school classes are actually taught by tech professionals. So we've worked with like American Equity at East High School, and those kids learn a skill, and then we take them to that company for a job shadow. They present, and each of our students for the last 3 years has had, we've given them a laptop. So we've actually provided over 200 laptops in the last 3 years in Des Moines alone. And that speaks volume, because we've been at the forefront of fighting for equity, especially equity when it comes to technology access. Kids cannot succeed. We cannot even have this conversation if kids don't have access to technology. They are not going to succeed if they don't have it. I think at the beginning, I was the only person saying this is critical. And unfortunately, it had to take COVID-19 to make all of us realize this. If we're going to think about future jobs, we have to think about how 5 and 10 years look like. Even we in this room cannot imagine how those jobs are going to look so differently.
Yeah.
They're going to be so different. And most of them, automation is taking over. Go to Walmart, and we're not teaching those skills. We're still talking about how do kids even do online classes. So I'm challenging us today as we talk and look forward. We really have to start saying, hey, no ifs, no buts. Every kid has to have access to technology. We need to get past digital literacy classes. We need to be teaching like RPAs, AI, machine learning, because that's where they're going to be in 5 years or less.
Yes, I love your future focus, Nancy, and I think that's something hopefully we'll be touching on in the next couple of weeks too. So thank you so much for sharing, and I'll call in Terry, who I think was on a different call, but is back with us. So thanks, Terry. I know you've been with us every week. I think.
Well, thank you, and thanks for inviting me this morning, Nancy. I'm so glad to hear of the work that you're doing, and I know how oftentimes resources can be stretched to the limit. So I do have an idea that we might be able to collaborate on to support your college students this summer. So if you have a moment and can give me a call, I think that there's an opportunity for us to make something big happen for those college students that you want to support. So great
that.
reason for us to have this call so we
Yes.
can network and collaborate in real time.
Love it.
So thank you to the
Great.
Community Foundation.
Thank you.
So as we all know, youth serving programs are an essential part of what we do anyway. But even as you think about COVID, we have become even more essential as we think about ways that we support our youth during what has been an unprecedented time in our communities, in our country's history. Oak Ridge neighborhood has been really busy. As I shared with many of you, we have never closed our doors. We are client facing in so many ways. And our board made a decision along with our senior leadership team that we were going to try to tough it out. And we were going to keep our doors opened with some heightened safety protocols and stepping up a lot of things to allow us to not only keep our staff safe during all of this, but also to make sure that our clients and our residents were supported. So speaking specifically to the work in the youth serving space, we supported essential workers, children, and families during this entire time. And I think today is like day 86 since the first case in the state of Iowa was identified. So we've been at this for a while. But we obviously have an early childhood program that continues to support families. But we also have our out of school program that has been vitally important, especially during the time that children have been focused on distance learning. We've provided meals and food support with the assistance of so many community collaborators and partners. Food is not our space, but boy, when we're able to collaborate with others to provide food for families in times like this, it was just huge for us. We obviously really focused our attention on offering educational support in this virtual environment. We stepped up our Wi-Fi efforts, and because every single one of our building is Wi-Fi enabled, we allowed our students to have access to our administrative offices, our community center, our senior living center, so that they could have access to Wi-Fi to complete their distance learning needs. We also were finding new ways to stay connected and providing critical support and services to families. But during all of that, we knew that we needed to really be future focused, and we really needed to be thinking about what it was going to look like as we move to recovery. I'm not for sure we're fully into recovery mode, but I do think that so many of the things that we learned over the course of the last 8 or 9 weeks have really informed many of the strategies that we're going to be utilizing as we move into summer mode, which for us starts this week. We've really modified our schedules because we were really in tune with all of the needs to socially distance and make sure that our kids were safe. We modified schedules and did morning and afternoon sessions. We did morning academic sessions, and in the afternoon, we did enrichment, which meant that we could use different spaces on our campus. We didn't necessarily need Wi-Fi access for kids who were not doing educational programming. So we were able to do some things outdoors. We were able to go other places on our campus. We have a few vacant apartments, and so we were able just to max out our capital, our physical capital, to meet the needs of our students. The other thing I wanted to just mention is that we're really concerned for our kids moving forward. There is so much uncertainty about what's ahead. I think Kate captured some of that. But we're concerned not only about the impact of COVID slide, but you layer on top of that what we traditionally know as summer slide. And we've got a lot of work to do with and for our kids to make sure that they are maintaining particular levels of proficiency that the district has worked so hard to help beef up for all of our students. We're definitely planning for a not so certain return to traditional school, and what that means for the bandwidth of our own organization as we try to figure out how we come in and sort of fill that gap, step in to support not only our students, but figure out ways that we can collaboratively work with Des Moines Public Schools so that we leverage our resources against their resources to the benefit of our students, which I think is what so many of us are thinking about right now. And I encourage us to be really active in those spaces because there is so much room for the nonprofit sector as we begin to navigate this uncertainty. But I do think that we have the capacity to really figure out ways that we use our collective muscle to the benefit of our students. I think we're in a much stronger position because of all of the things that our organization did during COVID. And so we sort of have a leg up that maybe others don't. But I think we also have some really great lessons that we've learned. And I'd certainly be happy to be a resource to other organizations, to share our learning, to share our thinking, and to share some of our innovation moving forward.
Well, Terry, I just wanted to say that is a perfect segue into the fact that you will be leading one of the breakout discussions. So that'll be an opportunity, I think, for people to ask questions and learn from you, because you have been such a leader, during this time as always. And also wanted to call out that you've been helping to present some of the One Economy 2.0, is that what we're calling the second phase of One Economy information as well. And so, that you're a resource on lifting that information up as well. So I'm sorry, I did cut you off, so I don't want to cut you off. Is there anything?
That's fine. We can continue in the breakout rooms.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, if we could go then to the next slide, speaking of breakouts,